We can see from the ending paragraph above that what we consider subconscious has its own integrity beyond what we normally attribute to it. Most think of it as a sub-part of us, but if that portion of us is more aware than what we are in waking life, then it is probably more accurate to consider the normal waking ego a sub-part of it. This does not disagree from the psychological viewpoint of our makeup, since psychologists think much of our thinking and behavior comes from this area. It would seem that this unknown portion of us is more than what we think we are. It has access to all our memories with extreme clarity, as found under hypnosis. And from what has been learned through parapsychology, it also has access to clairvoyance, precognition, and those abilities beyond the secular Western science considered normal. It is because of this tremendous amount of information that the ego forgets. Its main purpose is only the physical manipulation here. It is like a form of hypnosis into pure focus of the physical reality, but is, by far, not all we are. In our search, it seems that thoughts come through this other portion of ourselves to the level of the ego consciousness. In most cases, these thoughts are translated into words or inner talk. If you are working with the ideal of something physical, you may also use images. On rare occasions, when we get information in a flash or psychic manner, we may just feel that we know something, then interpret it. So here we have three different mediums of how thoughts come out, though this may not be all. We also have the reaction where it sort of bypasses the mind and we don't think of it, but the body reacts, such as in playing a sport. All of this still comes to us from a deeper source. We have seen some glimpses of this source, know of its existence, yet at an ego consciousness level rarely consider it as us. Seth gives us this on the subconscious. Seth Speaks, 5:12. Quote, "For those of you who wonder where I place the subconscious, as psychologists think of it, you can imagine it as a meeting place, so to speak, between the outer and inner ego. You must understand that there are no real divisions to the self, however, so we speak of various portions only to make the basic ideas clear." End quote. This should come as no surprise, since the ego focus is only concerned with this reality and has not concerned itself with whatever it considers subconscious. There could be many levels of these other portions of ourselves, but remember, they are not other persons. They are the makeup of what we are in this world. As an analogy to this idea, I would like you to think of how we change our focus of consciousness even at this level, and project further breakdown of ourselves. One example I will give is the advent of computer-simulated virtual realities. I will use this example because it not only shows the projection of our consciousness, but also demonstrates the illusion of perception. With the advancement of today's computers and programs, we are able to create a three-dimensional virtual reality world. Note that even the programmers call it a reality, and for those of you who have even played some of the flat-screen 3D games, you understand this meaning. By a set of numbers, data in the form of ones and zeros, and mathematics, this is all a computer really is. An illusion of virtual world becomes somewhat real. The physical you sits at the computer and perceives this world through visual and audible output. You input your commands through a computer interface, such as a keyboard, and can then manipulate within this computer-simulated world. How much of you is in that virtual reality? In most games, you have a virtual character that manipulates in that world from your inputs. Is this character you? You see through its eyes or viewpoint and control its every action. Once you get into one of these games and focus there, you pull your focus away from this real physical world so that you can concentrate on the game. Depending upon the makeup of the game and virtual world, your computer character will have something in that world that it is the objective of the game. It may be survival, kill the bad guys, find a treasure, or solve a mystery. Within today's computer world, you may also be in a virtual world with many other players of real people who are also entering the virtual reality through a computer interface. You can talk to them and work together or against each other. Though this virtual world has absolutely no real physical reality other than the computer, some part of you is in it and what we call living through a character within it. You react to the environment, and your character can even be killed in most games. You may be emotionally involved and feel as you play the game such things as anger, joy, greed, triumph, loss, and others. But this all takes place in a computer as numbers, data, and mathematics. All awareness is through your interpretation given to you through the virtual character. But when you turn off the computer, that world does not exist except for a lot of ones and zeros on a disk in such a pattern that through the computer it has meaning to us. It is only recently in man's history that we have the ability to create such a complex device to interpret massive amounts of data to be able to create this virtual reality. As interfaces become better and the computers more complex, the reality will expand, and by our perception in it will become more real. But we know what it is. We made it. Within it we send a portion of our consciousness to interact with it, and what we are there, our world focused in it. The character is us. Without us to see through its eyes, or give it commands, it is nothing. It is our projection that makes it alive in the virtual world. This is a long explanation, and I have repeated the concepts of projection of consciousness, focus, and awareness a few times to get the ideas across. We are very similar in this world. The brain is the interface as we have seen, and has shown to contain every memory we have. To the physical body, made up of the same matter that all other physical things are, the world is solid and real. But the part of us that is our consciousness and deeper portions of ourselves is much more than this, and projection through us. This does not make us not this larger part of ourselves, but that part of us that is focused here. But, because of this reality focus, we are interested only within the physical, on the ego level, for that is the ego's purpose. We play this game of physical life and think it is all the only real, yet every night we turn off the ego-conscious focus and are no longer in this reality, as far as consciousness of ourselves or the physical environment is concerned. We may at times focus in a dream world, and when there, it is the real one to us at that time. All of these ideas have shown there is more than what we are at this ego level, that projects only a portion of consciousness into this physical reality. This is what most people call a soul or higher self, and it is that main metaphysical part of us that creates us on a physical level. Again, the objective of this chapter is to look for where our thoughts come from. We have traced it back to this deeper source of our being, so let us look at some of what this portion is. Seth's book, quote, Seth Speaks, The Eternal Validity of the Soul, end quote, is mainly about this subject. I will only use a portion of it here that relates to what I have put forth so far. Seth Speaks, section 526. Quote, First of all, a soul is not something you have, it is something you are. I usually use the term entity in preference to the term soul. Break. The trouble is that you frequently consider the soul or the entity as a finished, static thing that belongs to you but is not you. The soul or entity, in other words, your most intimate, powerful inner identity, is and must be forever changing. It is not, therefore, something like a cherished heirloom. It is alive, responsive, curious. It forms the flesh and the world that you know, and it is in a state of becoming. Now, in the three-dimensional reality in which your ego has its main focus, becoming presupposes arrival, or destination, an ending to that which has been in a state of becoming. But the soul or entity has its existence basically in other dimensions, and in these, fulfillment is not dependent upon arrivals at any point, spiritual or otherwise. The soul or entity is always in a state of flux, or learning, and of development that has to do with the subjective experience rather than with time or space. This is not nearly as mysterious as it might sound. Each of my readers plays a game in which the egotistical conscious self pretends not to know what the whole self definitely does know. Since the ego is definitely part of the whole self, then it must necessarily be basically aware of such knowledge. In its intense focus in physical reality, however, it pretends not to know until it feels able to utilize the information in physical terms. You do have access to the inner self, therefore. You are hardly cut off from your own soul or entity. The ego prefers to consider itself captain at the helm, so to speak, since it is the ego who must directly deal with the sometimes tumultuous seas of physical reality, and does not want to be distracted from this task. Channels, psychological and psychic, always exist, sending communications back and forth through the various levels of the self, and the ego accepts necessary information and data from inner portions of the personality without question. Its position, in fact, depends in a large manner upon the unquestioning acceptance of inner data. The ego, in other words, the, quote, exterior self that you think of as yourself, that portion of you maintains its safety and its seeming command precisely because the inner layers of your own personality constantly uphold it, keep the physical body operating, and maintain communications with the multitudinous stimuli that comes both from the outside conditions and inside conditions. Break. End quote. This is a good ending to our look at the entity and the ego relationship, and also illustrates some of the concepts of the examples I had given earlier. I will end this chapter with an exercise to try and capture the essence of this entity as thoughts come to us. In it you may get a clearer picture of this deeper part of ourselves as well as the out-of-time aspects. For anyone who has had some transcendental meditation, TM, or other meditation practice, you may already experience thoughts as they come to you. I will give an example of this type of meditation without all of the bells and whistles of TM, as well as any special or sacred words that must be used. I can imaginatively hear the gasp of those who teach this meditation, but I am not teaching TM. My objective is to simply quiet the mind of all the chatter and think. You may find this more difficult than it sounds because we, the ego, live in the chatter. Start by finding some place where you can sit comfortably and are not disturbed by outside distractions. A nice quiet place if you can. I don't suggest laying down because you may fall asleep instead. Close your eyes and relax. Breathe naturally and don't worry about it. There are entire meditations and yogas designed around breathing, but for us, let the body do its natural thing. Now, listen to your thoughts, the chatter and/or images in your mind. Take a little time to see what is bouncing around in there and let them flow for a while. Then cut them out. Try to stop the inner talk of your thoughts and be quiet, not hearing the chatter. This is not easy, not to think in words, and it is one reason a word like Om is used in meditation. You can, if you need to, use it or any other inner sound without a meaning. Every time a mental word tries to speak in your mind, use this, or try to quiet it, till you can glimpse the quiet parts of your mind. Then dispense with any inner sounds if you can. It is here you will find your thoughts. A whole concept of thoughts may flash here to be verbalized through your mind, and you will know the whole concept in that instant. But the speed of it is a bit disorienting, and we want to speak it in our minds at our speed. Another way to see this is, as you want to speak a mental word, look to see where it is coming from. In that you already know it before your mental word. This is the flow of thoughts to the ego. To give you a little more of an idea of this, here is something to think about that Seth has to say. Seth speaks, session 523. Quote, break. The familiarity of speech begins to vanish when you realize that you, yourself, when you begin a sentence, do not know precisely how you will end it, or even how you form the words. You do not consciously know how you manipulate a staggering pyramid of symbols, picking from them precisely those you need to express a given thought. For that matter, you do not know how you think. You do not know how you translate these symbols upon this page into thoughts, and then store them, or make them your own. Since the mechanisms of normal speech are so little known to you on a conscious level, then it is not surprising that you are equally unaware of more complicated tasks that you also perform, such as the constant creation of your physical environment as a method of communication and expression. It is only from this viewpoint that the true nature of physical matter can be understood. It is only by comprehending the nature of this constant translation of thought and desire, not into words now, but into physical objects, that you can realize your true independence from circumstances, time, and environment. End quote. I have one more simple exercise and something for you to consider. When it comes up, as you may not hear it all at one time, listen to your conscience. I do not mean your consciousness, but your conscience. The something that seems to say, though maybe not in words, that something is right, wrong, to not do something, or to act. Try and pinpoint this part of yourself, and you may find that the connection to your higher self is very close. Compare this to the other thoughts you have in words in your mind, and you may find something interesting.